So there's code on screen. Pause if you want to look at it at any length, as I also need to adjust the volume here. But yeah, so you've seen this item before from the thumbnail, but to explain the code on screen, might as well just go over it. This part of the code on the upper part is more for just catching locations like the apartment. I figure you won't find any treasure there, otherwise you could just spam prepare and or rest, and that might be a little bit too much, but just it was more for immersive reasons. But as we get into the bottom part of the code, this is the meat of it. So when you go to the history club, yes, maybe finding treasure in the school isn't the most appropriate, but bear with me. If you go to the vending machines, if you go to the witch tree, you can find funds at pretty much a 50-50 chance, unless I am messing up the less than operator here, less than comparison here. But otherwise, if I am, an extra 1% won't matter, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But otherwise, yeah, just showing off debug log. If I do release this treasure finder, which did normally belong to an original custom character I made for World of Horror, but I would remove this, or like add it in a debug file in case you want a debug line in case you want to see it. Otherwise, I'm pretty much expecting to only spit out the message log of finding treasure, not really the one where you don't get treasure. But then again, yeah, if nothing else, definitely getting rid of this debug code, just to show there should actually be a space in between, so I actually need to reload the game really quickly. Never mind, that is the wrong thing. Did that appear? No, it didn't appear. But anyway, it'll still look okay. I can get through this. It's perfectly fine. But yeah, let's get into the video because, yeah, let's get into the video. So, again, it's not the most immersive item, but I figure as I'm going through the barrel of custom items that I've pretty much not thrown anywhere online, I figure I might as well do so for the sake of you, the viewer. Oh, I got a cough! But that's 7th Curse Ath, by the way. That's pretty much as good. So for base World of Horror advice, in case you just want to listen to it, I'll mention it again when we get into the run. But yeah, 7th Curse Ath is pretty much what you want to see if you're trying to challenge yourself, but you're looking for a random run. This is the random run that is good RNG, at least in my opinion. But again, I'll speak on it more after the timestamp. So, for timestamp's sake, as we get into Ath, 7th Curse, Nurse Miku, we have the treasure finder here today, and the code was at the beginning of the video. But the reason why this combination is pretty much, I don't think there's any other old god backstory combination that's the most advantageous to a player in general. Again, if you're playing with Kyrie or you're playing a very spell-based character that actually procs Ath on spells, it can be a little iffy, but it's far from Zektast, a Knight Errant, or Eldritch Parasite. Charisma, Dexterity, Light Knowledge, Second Encounter, Second Mystery. And that's not a mistake, by the way, design-wise, at least in my opinion, because unlocking and playing those later, basically, backstories are supposed to be more difficult. And if nothing else, I do believe there are also, well, not nothing else, but the other side of that is I think they were meant to be harder backstories, design-wise, so if that's not true, whoever knows the deal can tell me otherwise. But as we see, Flood, Coma, Ward, Fetus, and Notations, we have 2 boss mysteries. The question is, what do we want to take first? Not Coma. Coma I like to take last, because just that small little advantage of, hey, you lose -3 reason for not doing ending A. You don't die to reason loss. You can still save yourself. Preferably with the bath, but sometimes you don't have it. Notation Fetus. That's the decision here. Ward, we want to take later. Flood, we definitely want to take later. Pretty much after Ward, I think, if I plan to... Yeah, you know what? That's the plan. Now, Notations or Fetus. So the thing about Notations, I think Notations was updated to give you that bonus status effect. If it already came with the status effect, then egg on my face. But I feel like it came out... that was... added to the mystery later. I'm thinking right now, I'm also leaning back from the microphone because I spent the last few hours doing game dev stuff. But yeah, Flood, yeah, so we'll do Notations first. If we're okay, we'll enter Ward. If we're not, we'll enter Flood and recover. Yeah, because it's -1 reason. There's another mini-mod mystery that's part of this pack that... I'm going crazy. That I think increases Doom, unless it was completely different. Yeah, I think I'm thinking of a different mystery. Anyway, so yeah, you can't find any treasure in your apartment because your apartment was probably already looked for. I mean, yeah, you could try to be cool, but we just want to open up the funds there. We also want to make sure that we grab a thing. So the main part of this treasure finder, which could be just part of a backstory, is that when you're doing usually at the very beginning, if you're playing at least somewhat efficiently, you're either entering a store or you're doing some prep work, like maybe at the witch tree for funds. Therefore, basically, you get an extra 1 or 2 funds on average If you get more than that, it's nice. If you don't, bad luck. And yeah, that's not really much else to say. That being said, butterfly knife or army knife? There are situations in which both of these will provide advantages. To be cool with PERM, I'm just going to equip the butterfly knife. Also, I mean, yes, Miku has 2 perception, but she has mayhem, so that's why I don't really consider that a negative. And yeah, now that we actually want a coin flip twice, then yeah. And so this is what I do want, by the way. So when you get that perfect recording, I hope this recording doesn't die. But so yeah, rolling a 50. So you'll notice that I structured the text just to be similar to how you do a stat check. Now, the part about this, I should have mentioned this near the beginning, is that square brackets cannot be thrown in message log for whatever reason. Curly brackets can, but then that's just a little nitpick. It really is a nitpick, because you can just use parentheses. That'll be just fine. If you use parentheses instead of square brackets, I'm not really going to nag at you. It's just that I'm trying to be more in line with consistency with World of Horror. Well, there's something, I'm going to say text design. That's not the correct phrase, but you get the point. Anyway, moving on. It's a very small nitpick. No one should be making any changes based on that small nitpick. You can if you want, but hey, and again, this is more general comments. I'm not trying to be subtle or sly or anything. That's just my developer, designer, game design brain kind of rolling in my head. I would far more rather any game developer or mod creator or, author, please make sure your medium does not completely collapse the floor or crash in the case of game development. But you get the point. Anyway, moving on. So, we get prescription pills for our trouble. So again, that's the whole shabab with a thingamajiggy. You can also get treasure around the police station. Maybe an eldritch monster drops it. That doesn't make as much sense. Yes, I could fine tune the treasure finder so that if you enter the police station, maybe you don't find treasure for immersive reasons. I forgot my max threat level location, by the way. It was not where I wanted it to be, but it's fine. Let's walk forward. But yeah, we'll just leave it as is for now. Because maybe you're strolling along downtown and you find, treasure for whatever reason. That sounds odd as well, but there's only so many, for gameplay reasons, I left downtown open to the treasure finder proc, because if you can't do that, the only other places a player will normally check is the tree or the seaside. To some extent the school too, but again, that depends on what you want to immerse yourself in, because, and the other side of that is that the village has no sub-locations or sub-actions. I'm struggling in real life. If it did, and we visited at least once every even 2 runs, then I would be like, okay, yeah, now I'll try to make the downtown and or school location not proc things as well. But because that's not the case, shrug. Also, yes, we do have a syringe, and I did not use the butterfly knife. That's the whole reason we play Nurse Miku. But I guess for this run, we're not going to be playing with the syringe. Goodness. Out of curiosity, so interesting to note that in the middle of war, the treasure finder will also proc. I might just leave that. That is unintended. Yeah, this is unintended, by the way. But all things considered, if you're in ward, again, I figure there's a push and pull there. Although, on average, I think there'd be an advantage. But because it's so RNG, I might just leave this. Again, ward functions differently, which is a whole thing that you've seen, I think, over a dozen episodes ago. If you weren't watching, or if you're not in tune with this channel, basically there are weird custom content, especially PERM related things that can happen in ward. It's been patched now, I think, but you still have to be careful when making your own custom content, because again, the ward is functioning a bit differently. According to the game, these are entering ward apparently is a town location specific thing, which is interesting to note. But anywho, do I just go for this 75%? Let's go for it. I don't normally do this. I would rather just, kick, but I figure for the my arm. I figure for the purposes of content, we'll just go for the 75%, and then let's get out. But I also have the handcuffs, by the way. I also did not give the curious package, but we should be one-shotting this encounter. It's just that the curious package will now take up space, so we're also now taking all damage. But hey, I rolled a 1. But yeah, normally this should be. So in normal TRPG terms, that should be a fail, but because World of Horror treats it, again, we're going with World of Horror design consistency, so rolling a 1 here is a success, because you roll under the threshold and you succeed normally. But that's something I need to fix in other proc things that I might have, but hey, anywho. Can I one-shot this, actually? Maybe we just have to actually take this damage. I don't like doing that. We could also Thread of Fate. Because we're on Ath, this actually costs 5 Doom instead, so instead of running for 5 Doom, we can get Ending A and 13 experience. I think this is Ending A, it doesn't show here, but you get the point. But yeah, just to wrap that up, okay, yeah, this is a very good recording. I hope I don't lose this recording, because it showcases a lot of both the treasure finder and perm stuff. So again, yeah, Ward, when you're doing quote-unquote, or going in to do investigations, because you're not even investigating until you hit a certain button, you have to go to the hospital, which is treated as a sub-action. And it kind of makes sense, because that's the way to the doctor's office, I think. I might be just going crazy right now, because I'm trying to focus on Flood now. That's kind of my excuse. But you get the point. Yeah, be careful, because things can happen. Also, the butterfly knife. Yeah, let's just do this. I think next turn we're out if we hit that last attack. If we don't, sadness. But it's fine, we get bonus damage. I always forget. That's because of the sharp, right? Yeah, sharp bonus damage. Something to note. Again, base roll of horror advice. Yeah, the Sweaty Assailant, I forgot his name, it's literally on my chat. Weak against sharp, remember that. If you were using a sharp weapon, then you can kind of do your math differently. Now note there is HP scaling, so consider that in your math too. But if you're like on your third mystery, if you're going into Flood on your third mystery like I am, you're like, oh, he has 8, I think he had 18 HP. But anywho, we need to rest a whole bunch, is what I'm trying to say here, so whoops. But let's just take the... Oh, I actually didn't want to take Reason. I'm going absolutely... I know that event. I purposely hit that. I'm saying, oh, I can take Reason in a mystery where the boss deals Reason damage. Do we get to heal all the way, by the way? No. So, we get Brainworms. Might as well... If we don't need to spend 2 stamina... Because the other side of that... So, a small little micromanaging thing... Not micromanaging... Efficiency thing is whether or not to cast Brainworms immediately here, as opposed to trading 2 stamina for 1 reason here. Because if you're topped off on stamina, you might as well use that stamina in some way, whether you have a cursed doll, whether you are using Brainworms, whether you are trading 2 stamina for 1 reason, which is what you would see me normally do. Nice attack 50%, by the way. Yeah, not really much else to say. I'm going to throw the wooden bat here. So we can throw the thing... I had to cough. So we can throw... so we can deal damage to the boss. Shrug. And off we go. Did I not use these handcuffs, or did I get another pair of handcuffs? Anyway, so we probably are going to... No. I think we just Desperate Prep Strong here. Desperate Prep Strong? Desperate Prep Strong. Desperate Prep Strong? Yeah. This does 12 damage, so off we go. Restless, again. So the reason for that is because while you're doing Flood, you'll always get the Restless bonus, which recovers 1 stamina, 1 reason. So if you're topped off on stamina, you might as well trade off 2 stamina, unless you have a very specific reason. Like usually you're going to lose a lot of reason in the run, or a lot of stamina somehow. Then you do something different. Anyway, Coma or Fetus. So we'll do, yeah, Fetus. What am I saying? I said I was going to do Coma last. Forgot my second encounter, by the way, so off we go. But what we can do with all of this treasure finding is grab a pack of cigarettes. If we run into out of funds, we'll trade off Doom. Flood really doesn't take away a lot of your Doom, although again, if I were to band-aid fix things against the player, it would be to make the rest in Flood. Trying to decide what I wanted to do here. The rest in Flood basically add 1 Doom. Now, realistically speaking, it might actually be scaling, just like how Festival scales rest. But if that happens, I'm not going to be too torn up about it either, because I would still argue you take far more damage doing investigations, usually, than the scaling Doom. To some extent. Actually, resting 4 times with scaling Doom might be too much, but you get the point. You're not losing a lot of Doom anyway. Actually, I would have to do the math there, but as we enter double nurses, we do have handcuffs for this encounter. If I just attack this enemy in front, I think it just removes the other enemy, right? Or it removes this nurse. I'm gonna find out. I know I've done this experiment before, and yeah. And actually, I got slapped by the nurse that did Reason, so that's why I died there. I was interested to see what would happen. I think Perm also correctly targets it. So if I targeted enemy B there, it would have been. I think I would have been fine. But if I were not using Perm, I wonder what would happen. Anyway, yeah, not really much else to say. Just lose gracefully. Bye.